I spent 177 days on a deserted island with a beautiful tour guide in collusion with the light. The world suddenly met its demise. Stranded with the enchanting guide, I found ourselves to be the last remnants of humanity on this blue planet. I suggested, for the continuation of mankind, we should consider. Before I could finish, she spat at me. Even if every man on Earth perished, I would never look at you. I meant to discuss how we might survive. What did you think I was implying? I wiped my face angrily. I wager that within 3 days, you will come begging for my assistance. If I lose, I shall leap into the sea to end it all. 8 hours prior, we were aboard the Challenger, venturing towards an uninhabited island in the depths of the ocean. The 26 individuals on board were participants in a 21-day wilderness survival challenge. With a substantial reward awaiting those who succeeded, I was merely one of the impoverished souls. The guide, Suchuan, served as both our leader and project manager, as well as the camerawoman. On board, we watched a video of people worldwide bidding farewell to their loved ones, announcing the end of the world. In an instant, a massive wave crashed upon us, capsizing the vessel. When I regained consciousness, I found myself wedged between stones along the shore, and before me lay a small island. Assessing my situation, I discovered I possessed nothing but a pair of underpants. Having swallowed a great deal of seawater, I was about to relieve myself when unexpectedly a living human emerged from the ocean. Even with the planet reduced to just the two of us, I was still met with disdain. Humph, the world may have been destroyed, but she still carries herself like a haughty princess. I consoled myself, as if I would be interested in her. I turned my back to the small island, which was hardly large enough to be worthy of a glance. The vegetation was sparse and somewhat unconventional. After searching for some time, without success in locating food or even a drop of water, I glanced back at Suchuan, who sat upon a rock. My heart softened slightly, and while scolding myself for my weakness, I removed my underpants. I found 2 large, unknown leaves and tied them around my waist with vine. Approaching Suchuan from behind, I offered, "Let bygones be bygones, I forgive you. Please put this on." She eyed the underpants and inquired, "Where did you find these?" "I stumbled upon them," I replied. She accepted them. "Keep her distance," she instructed. I moved to the beach, watching her don the red underpants, which were quite striking. "Why were you peeping as I changed?" She huffed, pointing at me. I ceased my observation, retorting, "You merely said to keep my distance. You didn't say I couldn't look." She picked up a stone to throw at me, but froze, pointing at my waist, suddenly realizing. "You scoundrel! You made me wear your underpants." I feigned innocence. "How absurd! If you dislike them, you can always return them." Flustered and furious, Suchuan spun in circles, but ultimately could not bring herself to remove them. Are we truly the only 2 left on this island? Did everyone from the ship perish? The good news is that we are alive. This Earth now contains only us. The bad news is that this island harbors neither food nor water, and we too shall meet our end in a few days. Chapter 3. Suchuan glanced up at the blazing sun, weeping. "I do not wish to perish, nor do I desire to meet my end alongside you. Then let us each face our demise alone." With a heart heavy with shattered pride, I turned away without a backward glance. "Come back," Suchuan called out. I feel a bit frightened alone. My heart, too tender, compelled me to return to her side, maintaining a distance of 5 meters as she requested. "Are we truly destined to die?" "Perhaps," I replied nonchalantly. "If we meet our end, it will merely signify the conclusion of humanity." Suchuan began to sob once more. "Do not cry. There are still alternatives," I said. "What alternatives? Speak quickly." With a sense of righteous conviction, I declared for the perpetuation of humankind. "We must not fail in our duty." "Bah!" Suchuan spat at me. "My dream is to marry into a wealthy family. Your poverty is such that it would be better for humanity to perish than to inherit your wretched genes. What I mean is we should seek ways to survive." "What are you thinking? Such a rogue." I barely salvaged my dignity and proceeded to coax her. "Since you have spoken thus, do you truly believe you can bear the burden of humanity's extinction? Do not try to manipulate me. I would never fall for that. Even if all men perished, I will not look upon you. Fine. I wager that within 3 days, you will seek me out. Should I lose, I shall throw myself into the sea." In a huff, I turned and walked away. Chapter 4. After wandering the small island, I was utterly disheartened, having found not a single wild fruit, let alone fresh water. Thirsty and hungry, I sought refuge in the shade of a tree to conserve my strength, and before I knew it, I had fallen asleep. Upon awakening, it was dusk. Oh, have any of you, with empty bellies and despair in your hearts, ever gazed upon the beauty of a sunset over the sea? I beheld the golden sun, saliva pooling in my mouth, envisioning it as a mooncake slathered in butter. After swallowing a few times, I felt somewhat better, yet I began to worry about how to endure the long, dreary night. During my brief slumber, I had already been bitten by mosquitoes several times. If I were to sleep through the night, I would surely awaken as nothing but a skeleton. An idea struck me, and I made my way to the beach. Not seeing Suchun anywhere, I dismissed her absence, regarding her as a materialistic woman who cared not for humanity. Such individuals are beneath my contempt. I dug a pit in the sand and buried myself, finding that with the sand as protection, the mosquitoes could no longer torment me. I truly am quite clever. However, after a while, I encountered a dilemma. My handsome face had become a feast for the mosquitoes, and with my hands buried in the sand, I dared not move. Wasn't that a bit unfair? In a moment of desperation, I fashioned my underwear into a makeshift cover for my head, creating a small hole at the nostrils for breathing. To prevent the wind from carrying it away, I weighed it down with sand. Thus, a perfect, snug sanctuary was born. As I contemplated the fate of humanity, teetering on the edge of slumber, I heard the sound of rustling footsteps above me. Chapter 5. As Su-kun wept softly, she nearly stepped on me as she passed overhead. I resolved not to yield to my compassion, striving to restrain myself from emerging from the sand to call out to her. Gradually, Su-kun drifted further away. Before dawn the next day, I extricated myself from the sand, my body aching, and needed a while to recover my strength. Aside from the sound of the waves, the entire island was enveloped in profound silence. Scanning my surroundings, I could see no sign of Su-kun. Women's endurance surpasses that of men, so she should not have succumbed before me. Suddenly, I realized I was without undergarments. Hastily, I dug through the sand only to find my pair wilted and torn, rendering them unwearable. If Su-kun were to appear at that moment, it would surely be embarrassing. Just then, my eyes caught sight of a spiny seashell on the beach. I hurriedly ran over to retrieve it, fastening it to my waist with a vine and draping some tattered leaves around my hips as a makeshift cover. With the dawn's light, I began scouring the shoreline for any small crabs washed ashore, a practice once known as gathering the sea before the world's demise. The diminutive crabs scurried across the sand with remarkable speed. After a considerable effort, I finally managed to step on one and extract it from the sand, its size smaller than a fingernail. I delicately rinsed it in the sea, mentally preparing myself for a few moments before closing my eyes and tossing it into my mouth. Chewing a couple of times before swallowing, overwhelmed by a unique blend of sweetness and saltiness. This marked my first intake of protein in 2 days and nights. Yet it was far from sufficient. I climbed up the hill and snapped off a branch, its jagged edge resembling a sharp spear. What fortune I had! Armed with my makeshift spear, I approached the seaside, searching among the crevices for any moving morsels. A crab, the size of my fist, swam before me. I held my breath, carefully aimed, and suddenly plunged my spear down with force. I cried out, clutching my right foot, my scream akin to that of a slaughtered pig. After more than an hour of persistence, I finally speared a silvery pomfret, with my inhibitions diminished. I devoured it raw in a few bites. Just then, I heard a sound behind me, gudong, reminiscent of someone swallowing saliva. Chapter 6. I turned to see Su-kun standing behind me, her appearance startling. Her face was swollen from mosquito bites, resembling a pig's head. In her hair was a chaotic nest, intensely fixated on the fish spine in my hand. I greeted her, "Hello, good morning. A new day begins with a delightful breakfast. Have you eaten?" She suppressed her simmering anger and shook her head. "I'll eat when I get home," she replied. I hefted my spear and walked past her, saying, "I'm off to have some tea." I could sense her ravenous gaze upon me, and I deliberately began to recite a verse. "I shall treat you to steamed lamb, steamed bear paws, steamed deer tails, roasted duck, roasted chick, roasted goslings." Su-kun, lacking any sense of decorum, leapt up and delivered a flying kick, sending me head first into the sand. I rose, brushed off the sand, and continued on my way. It seemed she still had the energy to kick. Perhaps she was merely lightly famished. Suddenly, an important piece of advice came to mind, and I turned to her, saying, "The absence of food is not terrifying. What truly frightens is the prospect of dehydration after 3 days without water in a sweltering environment." After uttering this, I departed with a carefree demeanor under her perplexed gaze. To be precise, I should say I fled, for I spied a yellow plastic bag floating in the air. Chapter 7. I dashed up the mountain, following the plastic bag. With this bag, our lives held a glimmer of hope. Thank heavens the plastic bag was caught in a tree halfway up the slope. I climbed to retrieve it, The desalination of seawater was merely missing one vital element, which resided with Su-jun. However, I could not directly ask her for it. I required her to offer it willingly. Holding the plastic bag, I filled it with half a bag of seawater under Su-jun's inquisitive gaze. I found a stone with a hollowed-out center by the sea and poured the seawater into the stone basin. Su-jun approached, her eyes fixated on me. I queried, "Would you like to drink fresh water?" She licked her chapped lips and nodded. "Do you truly wish to drink?" I pressed further, and she nodded emphatically. Pointing to her chest, I declared, "Then I shall lend you something. It must be a cup." She raised her hand to slap me, but paused mid-air, asking, "What do you mean?" I replied, "To collect distilled water, one requires a bowl." She seemed to grasp the essence of my words. "Close your eyes." I squinted. Su-jun turned away, fiddled for a moment, and then returned with a plastic bowl in hand. I placed the plastic bowl at the center of the stone basin, filled with seawater, using a small stone to weigh it down and prevent it from floating. Next, I draped the plastic bag over the stone basin, securing it with smaller stones around the edges. I then positioned a small stone at the center of the plastic bag, right above the bowl, thereby creating an inverted umbrella shape. Finally, we awaited the sun's warmth. After half an hour, water vapor began to condense on the plastic bag, gradually coalescing into droplets that eventually fell into the bowl. 1 drop, 2 drops. At long last, fresh water was purified. I truly am a genius. After collecting a generous amount of distilled water, I offered it to Su-jun. "It's your bowl. You may drink first." Su-jun, no longer shy, accepted it, took a delicate sip to moisten her lips, and then savored it as if tasting fine wine, her lips smacking in appreciation. Tears began to flow. I observed her, pondering how remarkably developed her tear ducts were. Subsequently, Su-jun finished the bowl in a few small sips, tilting her head back to savor the last drops. It was now my turn for the second bowl. I too took a reverent sip, savoring the flavor. "There is a certain taste. Did you not detect it?" Su-jun furrowed her brow slightly, asking, "What taste?" "A milky flavor," I replied. Realization dawned upon her, and she swiftly slapped me. Chapter 8. With the issue of fresh water temporarily resolved, the matter of hunger loomed ominously. In an effort to alleviate the tension between us, I shamelessly offered to assist Su-kun in spear fishing. For the first time, she responded with a gentle nod. With the spear in hand, I exuberantly bounded towards the shore, only to find that fortune had turned its back on me. After much effort, I had not even managed to catch a single fish. Observing the disappointment in Su-kun's eyes as she waited on the shore, I felt a wave of embarrassment wash over me. At that moment, I noticed a small red object drifting in the water, which piqued both of our interests as it gradually approached. To my surprise, it turned out to be a can of 8 treasure porridge. However, my heart sank when I discovered it was empty. Disappointment surged once more, yet I couldn't bring myself to discard the can. I handed it to Su-kun, declaring it would serve as our cooking utensil from that day forward. I suggested we ascend the mountain to forage for wild fruits. Su-kun nodded, expressing that she was too famished to move and would wait for my return in the shade at the foot of the mountain. I made a solemn promise to bring her a delightful surprise. As I climbed, I pondered why I felt so desperate, questioning whether my 30 years of singlehood had cultivated an intense longing for the adoration of women. Another part of me chimed in, proclaiming that there was honor in being devoted. After all, ensuring the continuation of humanity warranted any degree of devotion. After traversing the mountain, I finally discovered a tree laden with red fruits, each the size of a cherry. I plucked one and tasted it, delighting in its sweet and tangy flavor. I fashioned a makeshift underwear from large leaves and reserved another for wrapping the wild fruits. Excitedly, I scampered back to Su-kun and triumphantly unveiled the treasures I had gathered. She smiled warmly and inquired, "Can we truly eat these?" I reassured her, "Rest assured, I have tested them for poison." With that, she wasted no time and devoured the 2 pounds of wild fruits with gusto. Seizing the moment while she was in high spirits, I began to regale her with tales of humanity's origins, from the creation by the divine to Nuwa's mending of the heavens, suggesting that such historical opportunities had once again presented themselves to us for a reason. "What does that signify?" she asked, suppressing my joy at her engagement. I replied, "It signifies that neither of us is ordinary." Suddenly, Su-kun clutched her stomach and cried out, collapsing onto the ground in a fit. "You scoundrel! Are you trying to poison me?" I was taken aback. "But I've already eaten them. There's no poison. Look at me. I'm perfectly fine." I added, "Besides, why would I want to poison you? If you were to perish, how could we continue to create?" Su-kun was drenched in sweat. Forget your creations. This is a curse. I feel like I'm dying. You won't die. I will find a way to save you. Just wait, I exclaimed, rushing to the shore to fetch a bowl of distilled water, only to return to find Su-kun had vanished from beneath the tree. I called out her name, but received no response. Panic set in as I began searching the vicinity, eventually discovering her voice weakly emanating from a dense thicket. Don't come any closer. Are you all right? I asked, my concern deepening. There was no response. After a while, Su-chun emerged, hunched over and clutching her abdomen, her appearance startling me, her face as pale as paper. I approached, intending to offer my support, but she exerted all her strength to convey her sentiments. Don't touch me. Stay as far away as possible. I stood frozen, at a loss. Get lost, Su-chun shouted with her last ounce of energy. With my tail tucked between my legs, I departed. The friendship we had just begun to cultivate capsized abruptly, extinguishing the nascent dawn of human connection that I had so carelessly smothered. I could hardly suppress the urge to strike myself in frustration. Chapter 10. The third night on the stranded island. It was also the final night of my wager. Would I truly leap into the sea if I lost? Would such an act be too hasty in the grand tapestry of human history? To my astonishment, just as the sun dipped below the horizon, the weather took a dramatic turn. The heavens seemed to descend into madness, with the sea winds howling and temperatures plummeting. It was impossible to rely on sand for warmth, so I began to dig a pit in the beach, large enough to accommodate my form. I then scoured the hillside for branches and stones, layering the branches across the pit and securing them with stones to prevent them from being whisked away. Thus, a makeshift shelter was erected. I lay within, testing its adequacy. It was barely sufficient. Though still chilly, it was considerably more bearable. As I hugged myself, I pondered where Su-chun might seek refuge from such dreadful weather. The winds atop the mountain were fiercer for a fragile frame, venturing there would be akin to courting death. Should I venture out to search for her? Just as I was about to rise, a wavering voice echoed above me. May I come in? Chapter 11. The pit, originally fashioned solely for my use, now faced the complication of an unexpected occupant. A delightful complication. I responded, conditions are limited, my apologies. As I contemplated whether to strike a pose, Su-chun had already slipped in beside me. No time for chatter. Hold me tightly, she urged, nestling against me. What a frigid form she possessed. I embraced her closely, wishing to transfer all my warmth to her. After what felt like an eternity, her shivering ceased and warmth began to envelop her. I whispered in her ear, sorry. She replied, no talking. I insisted, there is something I must say. What is it? I won. She paused momentarily before softly replying, hold it in. Don't move. A wave of embarrassment washed over me as I realized the implications of her words. Chapter 12. Throughout that night, slumber eluded me. A single man, unencumbered for 30 years. Would he still be considered human if he could sleep under such circumstances? I wondered if Su-chun had found rest. She remained silent, and I could feel our bodies, warm and entwined, never parting. Just before dawn, I unknowingly drifted into sleep. Upon waking, I discovered that Su-chun had already departed. Perhaps last night had merely been a fleeting dream, a springtime reverie where nothing transpired. I approached Su-chun, who sat by the sea, and cautiously suggested, shall we widen the shelter today? She did not turn to face me. If we widen it, the branches may not be long enough. Upon hearing this, the weight upon my heart finally lifted. There is hope for human civilization. A surge of responsibility coursed through me. Su-chun had not eaten anything substantial for 3 days, and it was imperative that I provide for her today. I declared, I shall go fetch some food, wait for my return. Chapter 13. I ascended the mountain, crafting a fish trap from branches and vines, placing it within the crevices of the coastal rocks, leaving the rest to fortune. Then, I ventured back up the mountain in search of edible wild fruits. This time, I employed wisdom, first seeking fruits pecked by birds, and following the trail to gather a generous handful of wild berries. To my surprise, I stumbled upon a bird's nest in a tree, cradling 2 eggs. Hesitation gripped me, yet survival took precedence. As I descended, I encountered a snake, its vibrant coloration suggesting it was non-venomous. I swiftly dispatched it, taking advantage of the opportunity. When I returned, laden with my finds, I found Su-chun slumped against a rock, on the verge of unconsciousness from hunger. I enveloped her in my arms, crushing a wild fruit to let its juice drip onto her lips, the deep purple liquid flowing into her mouth. She licked her lips and slowly opened one eye. Rest assured, This time it is not poisonous, I reassured her. I fed her a few drops of the fruit's juice, and she gradually came to. Look, what is this? I presented the precious bird eggs before her. Bird eggs, she replied weakly. Under the circumstances, we must consume them raw. She pushed my hand away. The mother bird is searching for them. I gazed upwards to see two birds circling overhead, cawing loudly. The eggs are gone. They can lay more. If you do not eat, humanity is doomed. Open your mouth. Sukun hesitated, and I gently pried her lips apart with one hand while crushing the first egg with the other, allowing the contents to flow into her mouth. As I prepared to feed her the second egg, she broke free from my grasp, insisting, "You eat this one." My heart trembled. She was beginning to care for me, and I felt tears welling up. I coaxed her, "You must eat. I'm not hungry." With both eggs consumed, Sukun's condition improved slightly. I then revealed the snake I had caught. "Look, there's more to eat." Sukun let out a shriek and fainted once more. I rushed to revive her, employing acupressure and mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. After a flurry of efforts, she finally regained consciousness. The moment her eyes fluttered open, she slapped my face. Smack! I was taken aback, covering my face, feeling somewhat aggrieved. "Why do you enjoy hitting me so? I merely wish to nourish you." She extricated herself from my embrace and sat upright. "You frighten me." "Blame me." Indeed, I was solely focused on earning your gratitude. Once she had calmed down, I inquired, "Do you remember our wager from 3 days ago?" Her face flushed suddenly. "That does not count. You tricked me twice." "How can it not count?" I replied, a hint of urgency in my tone. She shot me a sidelong glance and sighed. "You truly are a simpleton." Chapter 14. With fresh water and food temporarily secured, another pressing matter arose, the necessity of kindling a fire. I endeavored to kindle a fire by friction, toiling for hours without success, while my inner frustration soared. It was quite an affront before Sukun. In a fit of anger, I cast the wooden stick aside, rubbing my sore palms and searching around. Suddenly, I spotted a glimmering object on the beach, and upon closer inspection, it revealed itself to be the base of a glass bottle. An epiphany struck me. Was this not a convex lens? I picked it up and returned to the base of the hill, where Sukun regarded the glass base with a puzzled expression. "What are you doing? There's no need for self-harm just because you can't start a fire," she remarked. "Life's beauty is just beginning. Why speak of despair?" "Allow me to perform a little magic," I replied. Adjusting the angle of the glass base to catch the sunlight, I directed it toward the tinder below. Minutes later, wisps of white smoke began to rise. "It's igniting! It's igniting!" Sukun exclaimed with excitement. I bent down and blew gently on the tinder, and the flame leapt to life. Hastily, I added dry grass and decaying leaves to bolster the fire. Seizing the moment, I arranged some timber while instructing Sukun to tend to the flames, and I made my way to the shore to inspect our fish trap. Fortune smiled upon me, as I caught 3 fish of a decent size, which I placed on the fire to grill. After 3 days stranded on this desolate island, I savored the first taste of cooked food alongside Sukun, and we exchanged smiles. As the old adage wisely states, a hungry heart breeds mischief. Some things simply unfold as they should. We sat side by side on the beach, enjoying the twilight's embrace before returning to our bunk beds, officially commencing our cohabitation. Chapter 15. The days that followed became the most comfortable of my 30 years. We discovered a cave on the mountain, cleared out a few pesky pests, and transformed it into a long-term sanctuary. My fishing skills improved remarkably. During low tide, I constructed a stone barrier along the shore to catch more fish using the tides. Additionally, I crafted cage traps and elastic snares, managing to capture an abundance of wild chickens and rabbits, which I began to domesticate. I collected seeds from bird droppings and cultivated a small vegetable garden, planting corn, wheat, tomatoes, cucumbers, and other vegetables. Our nutrition improved, and both Sukun and I glowed with health, gaining a bit of weight. As autumn approached, calculating from the character etched into the stone, we had survived on the deserted island for 96 days. The weather began to turn colder, and with the scant fabric we had, it would be challenging to withstand the impending winter. Another pressing concern was that Sukun was expecting a baby. In recent days, her morning sickness had been severe, prompting me to scour the mountains for sour fruits. The living conditions on the island were far too harsh for an infant. We convened a meeting and unanimously decided to return to the mainland. Thus, I set about crafting a bamboo raft without delay, using shells as tools. I sawed down dozens of bamboo stalks about the thickness of a bowl. While the bamboo dried in the sun, I began making ropes. I peeled the vines, utilizing the more resilient fibrous layer beneath the bark, soaking it in seawater for 2 hours. Afterward, I removed it, tore it into thin strips, and had Sukun hold one end as she twisted the strands together. These fine cords were then braided into thicker ropes, which I coated with a layer of animal fat to enhance their durability. Once all the processes were complete, I placed them in the shade to dry, ready for use. The construction of the bamboo raft proved to be quite laborious, as I repeatedly bound it with sled ropes, determined to ensure that the family of 3 would face no danger whatsoever. Subsequently, I fashioned a sail from large tree leaves on the raft, providing shelter from the sun. After a month of diligent effort, the bamboo raft was finally completed. When we launched it into the water for a test, it performed flawlessly. The winds had been consistently blowing towards the mainland for several days, so we decided to spend one more night on the deserted island to rejuvenate our spirits before embarking on our journey home the following day. Awakening early the next morning, I was startled to discover that Sukun was missing, as was the wooden raft moored by the shore. Chapter 16. A sudden jolt of anxiety gripped my heart. Could it be that Sukun had set off alone on the bamboo raft? That simply could not be. We had become a family, and she would never abandon me to venture off on her own. I called out her name loudly and searched the small island, yet received no response. My search continued until dusk, and with each passing moment, my heart grew heavier. Exhausted, I lay down on a large rock, gazing up at the starry sky, pondering desperately why Sukun would act in such a manner. The night was eerily quiet. In a haze, I thought I heard someone call my name. Startled, I sat up, but the voice had vanished. Holding my breath, I attempted to capture the sound again, only to be met with silence. It seemed as though the night had absorbed any sound, like a sponge soaking up water. Perhaps I had imagined it. I lay back down, only to hear a faint clack, clack, clack sound. I cautiously sat up and stealthily moved toward the source of the noise. After taking a few steps, the sound grew closer. As I looked around, I suddenly found myself stepping into a void, plummeting downward in terror. In a frantic grasp, I clung to a nearby rock and summoned all my strength to pull myself up. Upon regaining my footing, I examined the spot where I had slipped, only to realize it was an entrance to a downward cave. The clack, clack, clack noise was emanating from within the cave. Chapter 17. A flicker of fear washed over me, for I had no idea what was producing that sound. Tentatively, I called out Sukun's name. The noise ceased, followed by a faint cry for help. It was Sukun. How had she ended up here? There was no time to ponder. I shouted back, "Do not be afraid. I will rescue you immediately." Using the moonlight to survey my surroundings, I noticed a tree nearby, which inspired a plan. I called to Sukun, "Wait for me. I will return shortly." I stumbled back to our shelter, gathered the remaining rope from the raft, and hurried back to the cave entrance. I called out to her, "Can you still move?" "My leg is injured. I cannot move," came her faint response, barely audible. I secured one end of the rope to the tree trunk and fed the other end into the cave. "Sukun, can you sit up?" I asked. "Tie the rope around your thighs, then secure it around your waist, holding tightly with both hands, and I will pull you up," I instructed. "Make sure to tie it securely and give the rope a shake when you are ready." After a moment's wait, I finally felt the rope shift. I positioned myself at the cave entrance, planting my feet against the rocks to pull upwards. Chapter 18. Sukun's right foot had twisted, and tears streamed down her cheeks. "Where have you been?" she lamented. I gently helped her sit down on a rock, examining her injuries while saying, "I have been searching for you all day, fearing you might have abandoned me. Is the child all right?" She replied, "There should be no problem. You silly. Where could I possibly go?" A warm surge of relief washed over me. To avoid exacerbating her injuries, I gathered 2 branches and some leaves, placing the leaves between her calf and the branches, securing her ankle with a rope. After a rudimentary treatment, I lifted her and returned to the camp for further care. Suchuan wrapped her arms around my neck and recounted how she had awoken early to relieve herself and discovered that the bamboo raft had been swept away by the sea. Calling out to me, she received no response and had ventured down to retrieve the raft, only to fall into a cave. I reassured her, saying, "The raft can be rebuilt. Your safety is paramount. Without you, my existence holds no meaning." As I spoke, a wave of guilt washed over me for doubting her ability to manage alone. Upon returning to the camp, I laid Suchuan down, elevating her right foot, and ventured to the beach with a plastic bag to fetch water. It was nearly midnight, and the dark blue sky was adorned with countless stars, the moon shining like a silver platter suspended in the air. Suddenly, I recalled the words from Genesis. where God promised Abraham that his descendants would be as numerous as the stars in the sky and the grains of sand by the sea. This thought imbued me with a sense of sanctity, dispelling all fatigue. I used the cool seawater I had brought back to ice her injury, then fed her a bowl of egg custard. After exchanging a few words, she gradually fell asleep. As I gazed upon her still exquisite features and the slight curve of her belly, sleep eluded me. I stepped out of the shelter, guided by the moonlight, to gather dandelions, returning to crush them with a stone to apply to her ankle for inflammation relief. Chapter 19. A month passed in the blink of an eye, and Suchuan's injuries had largely healed, and a new bamboo raft had been constructed. However, the ocean currents had shifted direction, and the winds had changed as well. Venturing out to sea under these circumstances posed unpredictable risks. We dared not take that chance. I began to prepare for the winter. Earlier, Suchuan had fashioned 2 garments for each of us from tree bark fibers, and it was time to prepare for the little one as well. Suchuan's sewing skills truly deserve commendation. The wooden needle I had fashioned for her was now deftly maneuvered in her hands, a sight that left me in awe. It was hard to believe that these delicate fingers once danced across a keyboard and clicked a shutter. We had amassed over 20 rabbit pelts, which should suffice for making fur coats and trousers. Stockpiling food was of utmost importance, just as we were engrossed in our winter preparations. An unforeseen event rendered all our efforts meaningless. Chapter 20. One morning, while I was harvesting corn, Suchuan, who had been chatting with me while seated on a rock, suddenly fell silent. She stood up, staring in shock at the sea. Following her gaze, I was astounded to see a cargo ship cruising on the water not far away. How could this be? Wasn't the world supposed to be in ruins? Suchuan quickly regained her composure, vigorously waving her arms and jumping as she shouted, "Help us! We are here!" It seemed the people on the cargo ship did not hear her. In a moment of desperation, I removed my red underpants, climbed onto a large rock, and began to shout and wave the garment with fervor. Suddenly, I was unceremoniously kicked down by Suchuan, landing in the cornfield like a dog in disgrace. Did you not claim that the world was coming to an end? I lamented. You saw that video too, didn't you? I had no time to dwell on such matters. As I hurried back to the camp to ignite a fire, watching the smoke curl delicately into the sky. Yet all was in vain. The cargo ship continued to drift away, oblivious to my plight. The end. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed it, feel free to subscribe.